What's up, guys? Today I want to tell you a little bit about my process and how I present work to clients. I think it can be helpful to you and hopefully you learn something. So, today we're going to be using Adobe Photoshop. If you're not familiar with this program, hopefully this will teach you a little bit about it. If you work in programs like Procreate or any of the other painting software, they have a lot of the same functions, so a lot of what I'm going to talk about here carries over into those programs as well. I'm going to be going over the basics today, but stick around to the end and I'll show you something that'll take it a little bit further. First things first, we have our document here. It's a canvas that's 8.5 inches by 11. That's because that's the size we typically print at. So if I were to put a design on this rectangle here, I know in my mind how that's going to correlate to the real world when I print it out. So it helps me with kind of gauging the size of the design. That's why I work in 8.5 by 11. Direct your attention to the lower right here. This is the layers panel. This is going to be important when I talk about layers and different functions. To our left, we have the tools panel. They are stacked vertically, and we're going to talk about a few of the tools there. There's also options for the tool that you're currently in up top. In Photoshop, it is really good to know a lot of the hotkeys. I will include a document with a little cheat sheet on the hotkeys talked about in this video. Now I want to go over a few of the tools and layer options with you. We're going to start off by making a new layer, and you click this button down here. It is a box with a plus sign, and that is going to create a new layer. You can see it here, layer 3, we've made a new layer. Now I'm going to hit B for the brush tool, so I can click and draw within here. This is going to be your painting tool. So if you ever want to paint something, B for brush, and that'll allow you to paint with it. So I'll just make a random shape here. If I want to move this around, I will use the move tool, and that is activated by holding down Control or Command if you're using a Mac. Control, click and drag, and now I can move this around. If you don't remember the hotkey, you can navigate to the top left, and it is this icon up here, and same thing, you can move it around. Up next is the marquee. You can activate this by either clicking the box up there or hitting M for marquee. Click, drag a bounding box, and control click, and you will now be able to move the object. So the other thing about the marquee is if I create one, then I hit B for brush, now I'm only going to draw within that box. That's the marquee tool briefly. The lasso tool, activate it by L. It is the next one on the tool panel in the top left. And it is the same thing as the marquee tool, only this you can freehand the selection. So you can draw it in yourself, and it does all of the same functions as the marquee tool. If you want to get rid of a selection, Control D for deselect. Another quick selection tool is the wand. That can be found in the top left as well, or you can do hotkey W for wand. And what that'll do is that'll select an area or an object of the same color. So if I want to select this ring here, I will click on it, and now it has selected the ring, and I can move it. This is very useful for selecting large objects and large broad areas of color. Control D again to deselect. Now we're going to hop down to the brush tool. This is activated by hitting, again, B. You can click and draw. If you're using a stylus, it'll be pressure sensitive, so you can draw lightly and have it get darker as you push harder. If you want to undo things, it's Control Z. Control Z for undo. B is for the brush, E is for the eraser. So if I want to erase some of what's here, I can hit E. And then same thing with the stylus or the mouse, I can erase what's there. I'm going to go ahead and undo this. Now let's get into a bit about how we're going to present this to a client. What I've done here is I've brought in some images for us to work with in the demo today. I'll include a file down below, this PSD, where you can open it up yourself, manipulate things, and become familiar with it on your own. So I have a forearm. I pulled this off of Google, and I got rid of the background, so it's just the forearm here. And if the client wanted a tattoo to be on their forearm, this is something I might use to present it to them. So Say they wanted something really simple, like these Roman numerals here. Well, we don't want that white box to be there, so that's where tools like the wand tool come in handy. So W for wand, click on the white, and now we have all the white selected, and we're going to hit backspace, and that deletes it. So now all we have is the black writing, which is what we want. We want to scale it down so that it fits within this arm. Say they want it small, like on their wrist. Control T to transform it, and we're going to make it smaller. I'm going to hold down Alt so it scales from the center. If I don't hold down Alt, it'll scale from the corner. Scale it down. Now we're within the arm here. Hit Enter to apply the transformation. Control, click, drag to move it down. We're a little bit bigger than the wrist, so again, we'll scale it down. Control T, hold down. And now you can see this is about the size they can expect. Let's go ahead and hit Z to zoom in. And we've placed it within the arm. Let's say you're doing something that is a little bit more advanced than that, a more complex design. I have here one of the designs I put together. And say we wanted to put this on their forearm. So similar process, but we're going to take a different approach to getting rid of the background. Because what you'll find is that if I use the wand tool and I select the white here, it's getting close, but we still have a white border down here. We still have this to worry about up here. So if I go ahead and select that, we're going to lose some of these marks that are on the inside here. So in order to allow us to have all of the detail that's within this design, we're going to change the blending option for this layer. Right now, it is set to normal. If you look at the top of the layer box where it says normal, that is the blending mode for this layer. Click it and it's going to open up this drop-down menu, and we're going to change the way that this interacts with the forearm beneath it. The layer we're going to be working with is multiply. And you'll notice that everything that was white has now become transparent. I also have a demo here to explain a little bit about this principle. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to change this to multiply real quick. So now you're going to see what happens. I have two gradients here. What's going to happen when I pull the multiply over this one? You'll see that where it's white, where it's lighter, it is letting the bottom show through. So all of these are getting darker because this gray is showing through. I have the normal, the white is going to show through on top of it because everything is completely opaque. So if you apply that to a more complex design like this, everywhere where it's lighter, it's going to be more transparent. So now that we have that layer option, the blending option correct here, let's get this scaled up to a more appropriate size. Again, that's going to be Control T to transform. Scale it down. Hit Enter to apply the transformation. I think we can go a little bit bigger on that. Scale it up. Sure, I like that. Okay, so now that we have it scaled down, how are we going to get rid of these edges here? Well, one way is you can hit E for eraser and just straight up erase it. I don't really like doing this because now if I wanted to move this design over, I've lost this edge. It is a destructive way of working, and there's a better approach you can take. So Control Z to undo that. We're going to use a layer mask. And the way you activate that is by clicking this box down here at the bottom of the layer tab. Click that and you'll notice on the layer it has given us another rectangle here. What that is this entire canvas, and it's saying it's completely white, meaning we can see everything within the box. Now draw your attention down here where the colors are in the bottom left. If I paint with black as my main color, right? If I paint with black as my main color, that is going to get rid of the image. So everywhere I'm painting with black right now is getting rid of there. It's making it invisible. And you'll look at the rectangle that's on our layer. You can see this black mark here. that is where I just painted, and it's saying that that is no longer visible. So what we're going to do is go to the forearm layer, hit W for wand, select outside the forearm, shift click to add to your selection. We're going to go back to our mask layer, and we're going to hit X to make black our secondary color here, and control backspace to fill. So real quick about filling, make a new layer, do a marquee. If I want to fill this with a color, control backspace will fill it with the second color there. So that's all I did on the mask layer. I just control backspace to fill the outsides, but now you'll see that we've clipped the image appropriately. If we want to move this around, it's going to keep clipping it because they are linked. The way to unlink them is click the chains in between here, and now they're not linked. So if I click on the image and move it around, it's going to be completely invisible outside of everywhere but the forearm. Okay. Now this is basically what I would send to the client. I would say, like, here's how it might look on your forearm. Do you like it? Blah, 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 and get their feedback and go from there. I also like to include just the design itself. So Control J for a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the layer mask. I'm going to right click on it, delete layer mask. Hide the previous layers, the arm and the smaller design. Control T to transform. Make this bigger, and that way the client has a better idea of how the design will look up close, and the other one is just to give them an idea of how it is scaled down. So now I want to save this because I'm not going to send them a Photoshop file. I'm going to send them an image that's a lot smaller and it's going to take up less memory. In order to save it, you're going to hit Control Shift S. That's going to bring up the Save As dialog. Click this drop down menu and you can select various options here. I'm going to go with JPEG and name it forearm demo, doesn't matter. Hit enter to save, hit OK, and now you have your file that you can send to your client. Do the same thing with the design, and you're good to go. Alright, if you have any questions or anything like that, definitely leave it in the comments below. I hope you learned something about this process, and thank you for checking it out. Now, if you wanted to take this design a little bit further, what you could do is bump up these lights a little bit. Because if you're tattooing and you use white, it's going to be a little bit lighter than the skin when it heals, and we can show this in Photoshop. So for example, I might put white inside this star here, just to make it that much brighter and have a little bit more contrast. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to create a new layer, and we're going to set this layer to overlay. And what overlay does is it bumps up the contrast based on whether or not you're using white or black. You can also use it with colors. It's essentially a lightening tool, but you can also darken with it. I'm going to hit B for brush and scale it down a little bit here. So now when I draw on this layer, it's going to lighten that just a bit. I'm using a stylus here to kind of get this glowing effect. Just because I'm not pushing, if I'm pushing really hard, it's going to go like all the way white like that. I'm pushing lightly so that it is a little bit more realistic to how it might actually look in a tattoo. Say we want to make these eyes pop a little bit more, drop some white in there. And this might actually be closer to how your tattoo might actually look. Again, that's the overlay layer. Yeah, I'll put some highlights like it's hitting the hair in here. And that just adds a little bit more to the tattoo. So if you were going to use white, you can show the client this, and this is going to be a little truer to what they are going to see. Alright, thank you for watching. If you made it this far in the video, I appreciate it. If you like the content, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you have any feedback for me, leave it in the comments below. Alright, take care.